Hey friends, welcome to Nerdy Bitz, TLDL, Too Long Didn't Listen. I'm your host, the Reverend Tracy, and this is where we take one study, one concept, or one piece of psychology or sociology and break it down so you get all the nerdy goodness without the textbook hangover. This one actually comes out of a moment in our most recent episode, part one of the illusion of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Tim brought up something that a lot of people have heard stories about. Parents going to extreme lengths to get their kids into a better school district, using a different address, living with relatives, finding ways around the boundary lines, essentially. And the question underneath that is really interesting. Are those just dramatic one-off stories, or are they pointing to something real? So I want to zoom in on the core question. Does where you grow up actually matter that much? And the short answer is yes, and much more than most people realize. And the reason we can say that pretty confidently comes from the work of economist Raj Chetty and his colleagues. They built something called the Opportunity Atlas, which is basically a massive data set tracking millions of Americans over time. Tax records, census data, longitudinal tracking across decades. And what they were trying to answer was simple. What actually predicts a child's long-term outcomes? Not what we assume, what actually shows up in the data. Things like adult income, college attendance, employment stability, even incarceration rates. And one of the strongest predictors they found was geography. Not just family income, not just individual effort, but where you physically grow up. Kids who grow up in higher opportunity areas are significantly more likely to earn more as adults, go to college, avoid incarceration, and experience greater overall stability. And here's where it gets really important. This isn't just comparing rich neighborhoods to poor ones. Even when you compare kids from similar income levels, the neighborhood still changes the outcome. So you've got two kids, same starting income, different zip codes, very different trajectories. And Chetty's work goes even further than that because they were also able to look at families who moved. And what they found is one of the most important pieces of this whole conversation. The earlier a child moves to a higher opportunity area, the better their long-term outcomes. Not just a little better, measurably better in income, in education, in stability. And for every year earlier that move happens, the benefit increases. Which tells us something really important. This isn't just about where you end up as an adult. It's about the environments that shape you while you're growing up. So the next question becomes, what is it about those environments that makes such a difference? And the answer is, it's not just one thing, it's a system. School quality is a part of it, sure. Access to experienced teachers, advanced classes, resources that are just there. But it's also peer groups, who you're surrounded by, what's considered normal, what's expected. It's safety, whether your brain is spending energy on learning or on staying alert. It's also exposure, what careers you see, what paths you know exist, what opportunities feel real to you versus theoretical. And it's something more subtle than all of that. It's expectations, not just what others expect of you, but what you learn to expect for yourself. Because if everyone around you is planning for college, that becomes normal. If no one around you is talking about that path, that becomes normal then too. And that shapes decisions in ways that are almost invisible while they are happening. So when people talk about just working hard or making good choices, this is the part that often gets missed. The environment is quietly shaping what choices feel available in the first place. And this is where those stories Tim brought up start to make a lot more sense. Because yes, there are documented cases of parents trying to work around school district boundaries. One of the most well-known is Kelly Williams Bowler, a mother in Ohio who used her father's address to enroll her daughters in a higher performing school district. And when you look at her reasoning, it wasn't abstract. She saw a difference in resources, in opportunities, in what her kids had access to, and she made a decision based on that. Now, cases like that are not the norm, but they're not myths either, and they point to something deeper. When people believe that geography can significantly shape their child's future, some of them will take real risks to try to change that variable. And that doesn't make them villains automatically. Actually, I see where that is making them a parent that's trying to help their kid the best they can. And it makes them people responding to a system that clearly matters. Because if where you live didn't matter, no one would risk anything to change it. And that's really the takeaway here. This isn't just about individual behavior. It's about structure. The environments we grow up in are doing more work than we often realize, quietly, consistently, and over time. And once you see that, it changes how you understand outcomes. It adds context, not excuses, context. So, what do we do with that? This isn't something you solve in a single conversation or an 8 to 10 minute podcast. And it's not about judging individual families for the choices they make. But it is about being honest about the system we're operating in. Where you grow up matters a lot. And when we see people trying to work around those boundaries, it's not just a story about rule breaking. It's a signal about what people believe is at stake. So maybe the takeaway is this. If we want better outcomes for kids, we can't just focus on individual effort. We have to pay attention to the environments we're asking them to grow up in. And that's your Nerdy Bitz. Your brain probably felt this already. Now you've got the data to go with it.
Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Bye-bye, friends.